Hi everybody and welcome back to the Gallowgateshots YouTube channel and podcast, back with another match reaction. I am your host for this one, Chris, joined by the ever-present Scott. Scott, you must be getting sick of this channel at the minute because every video I think you're featuring on. But always nice to have you, mate.
Cheers, and not at all. Happy to help.
So let's just dive straight in it. Obviously, this is a match reaction on the back of the defeat to Manchester City. We always knew that this was going to be a tough task, Scott. I think everybody would have preferred a team that wasn't fighting for the Premier League title after our cup final defeat as well, and rather a game where Eddie Howe could potentially use that as a springboard, really, to get the lads back on their feet. But unfortunately, it wasn't the case. Newcastle did lose 2-0. But just to start off with, Scott, we'll go through the starting lineup because we got word of this around 15 minutes before kickoff that there was some big shocks in regards to changes made by Eddie Howe. So let's just go through them there now. Obviously, the first one, we knew it was going to happen. Nick Pope comes straight back in between the sticks. The shock for me, if we're talking about that substitute, is that change is that Karius wasn't even a substitute. Karius dropped out of the squad completely. Do you think that's a little bit harsh?
I think it's very harsh. I think we talked about this on the preview as well. Like you more than warranted at least staying in the squad for this one. Whether he's done that to keep Dubravka happy, whether he's done that just because he thinks Dubravka's got he's more match ready. Don't know. Obviously you never really want to use your substitute goalkeeper, and you never really most times you don't have to. So yeah, it was to answer your question, it was very, very harsh for them to just come straight back in.
I'm saying that, but if you're asking me this question before the Carabao Cup final, who's our second choice goalkeeper? It's Dubravka all day long. And I think, yes, Karius had a decent game against Man United at Wembley. Didn't have a fantastic game. So probably, without using sentiment and obviously thanking Karius for that performance in that final, probably Dubravka does come in because he is your best after Pope.
Yeah. I mean, if he's second choice, which we all assume he is, then he has to come back in if he's fit and he's available. Like that sends the wrong message to be like, well, okay, Karius played okay in the final, he gets to stay on the bench. So yeah, maybe it was more of just a ranking order than anything else.
Just in front of Nick Pope, another change. Something else which was highlighted in our group chat. I'm not sure if it was mentioned on the preview, but Fabian Schär just took his usual head injury in most games, which he gets. But the one against Manchester United has kept him out. So because of that slight concussion, Eddie Howe classed it as, Jamal Lascelles comes in, just reclaims that captain's armband, and that's what sent Twitter in a meltdown, mate. The arrival of Lascelles.
It did. I mean, for the Fabian Schär thing, I think it's a 7-day protocol where if you have any form of concussion from a game, you've got to kind of sit out for 7 days. So I don't even know if he would have been training. I haven't seen any of the videos or the pictures that they put out this week. I didn't see them post any. I know they did put them out, but I didn't actually see them. I was surprised that Eddie Howe didn't mention it in his press conference on Friday. There was absolutely no mention of it at all, whether that was, playing cards close to the chest. So, Pep Guardiola doesn't really know what's happening.
I think the only thing which was highlighted, Scott, was there was a question asked about Bruno because there was concerns about Bruno going into this game. And I think Eddie Howe said that he's fine, he's fit, and there's no further injury concerns.
Yeah, that was the surprise because obviously I don't know, do you class concussion as an injury? I suppose if the player's out,
it's keeping you out
on the injury list. Yeah. For me, and I think I tweeted about this as well, I would have liked to have seen him play Dan Burn and Botman together as a back two, and then bring back in Matty Targett, who would probably be a better left back in terms of speed against Phil Foden, and we saw what happened. We'll come to that later. But that's hindsight. I mean, Eddie Howe's going to pick the best players that he has. Maybe his target isn't fully fit to play a full 90 minutes. So that's
just because you mentioned it as well, Scott, Dan Bird did do an interview before kickoff where he sat in the dugout. I can't remember who was in it. It might be Julian Lescott, maybe.
Oh, yeah.
No, was it Lescott? I can't remember. Lescott Ferdinand. Who else was there? I can't remember. Somebody was
Rafa,
interviewing him. It wasn't
one of
him. Somebody was interviewing him. And you asked the question, what is your best position? What's your favourite position? And he says, well, I'm a centre-back. I'm a centre-half. Yeah. And he's but most of my Premier League career, I have played at left-back. So do you think it's a matter of time before Dan Burn does get moved into that centre-back position, or are we strong enough with the partnership between Botman and Fabian where Dan Burn might actually be fighting for a starting spot?
I think the latter. And I think because both Botman and Dan Burn are left-sided central centre-backs. So, because I think if you look at Botman's stats, he can also play in that left-back position at a stretch. I mean, you wouldn't want him to, but he can fill in that role. And he always starts on the left-hand side of the back two when he's with us. So I think if you've got was it 4 centre-backs we've got now? All 4 fit, and you're playing Matt Targett at left-back, I think it's Botman and Shaw all day. Like, I think they're the 2 main men, and then the other 2 are unfortunately fighting for the position, and that includes Dan Burn, which is a bit of a shame.
So moving on, the next change and the final change, which Eddie Howe made, another shock one for me. Maxi drops out of the starting 11, and Anthony Gordon comes in. Maxi's obviously will know how probably his best game this season came against Manchester City at St James's Park. He got man of match performance against Liverpool, and he was decent against Man United as well. He always looked lively and looked at wanting to go forward where a lot of the team members weren't, a lot of the other players weren't. So I was massively shocked with that one. It doesn't look like it's any sort of injury concerns or any niggles or anything like that. It just looks like sheer tactics and tactical reasons that Eddie Howe has done that. So three changes, but 2 big shocks for me.
Yeah, and to touch on the Maxi for Gordon, I was surprised to see that happening. I thought he might start Gordon, but I thought it might have been Miggy who would have made way, and on the other side, and maybe even move Maxi to that other side and then start Gordon on the left, but they can both kind of interchange. I think the only thing I can think of is that maybe it's a mentality thing off the final. Some players deal with it better than others, and losing a big game like that. So maybe it was just a case of, well, you've maybe haven't reacted to that how I wanted to, so I'm going to put you on the bench and you can come on as an impact sub. We don't know. We've got no idea what's going to happen there, but that's the only thing that I can think of the reason why maybe Eddie Howe has done what he did. But he'll have his reasons, and you've got to back him for that. I mean, it's a big decision. The other thing with that is, I mean, it keeps the opposition guessing. Gordon hasn't started a game for us all season, so they maybe won't know what to expect with Gordon in an Eddie Howe side.
Well, just because we're mentioning him and sticking with Gordon, if we dive straight into the game and go through some key moments of the game, I think the first chance lands to Anthony Gordon, and he swipes and swings at fresh air, mate. Yeah. Absolutely. If that had been Joelinton doing that back in the days of striker Joelinton, there would have been hell on, because he's running with the ball, then he goes to swing his left foot, I believe it is, then just with his right big toe, just nicks that first and goes out of play, mate. It just sums up the last few games that we've played in, where we're getting ourselves in decent positions, and it was a very good position. I'm not saying he's going to score from this position, but he should certainly be hitting the target from it.
He should be hitting the ball.
Exactly, he should be hitting the ball. Never mind the target, the ball. But it was comical, wasn't it?
It was, and I mean, it's early in the game, so you can kind of forgive him for that. I think it was his first real involvement of anything of any sort in terms of an attack and threat. And it's just one of them things. He's kind of the foot he uses to plant on the ground to give him that stability for the swing of the shot. Just nicks the ball at the wrong time, and he's got Kyle Walker next to him who's keeping up with him on pace, and he's still got the keeper to beat, who's a very good goalkeeper. So you cannot say, oh well, he was definitely going to score, because you've no idea what was going to happen, but at least he could try and get the shot on target. But it is what it is. Like I say, it's just one of those unlucky things early in the game. Maybe it's a bit of rust because he hasn't started maybe a lot of games. Maybe it's just a little bit of sharpness, but Yeah,
It
you
happens.
can't hold
It
anything
happens.
against him for that. Like, it's one of those
No.
things that happens. Absolutely,
It happens. But just like the story of the last, like I said, the last couple of games, or Scott, we get ourselves in these areas. We get decent chances. We're creating decent chances right the way through the game, but we can't capitalize on them. And it's the opposition who hit first.
Yeah.
And in Manchester City, Phil Foden picks that ball up on the right hand side, outside of the box, probably about 30 yards away from goal.
Yeah.
And he just picks it up and keeps on driving and driving and going to the point where I think Anthony Gordon tries to give him a little nudge to push him off balance. Then he does really well, taking nothing away from Phil Foden, does really well. Great opportunities created himself there.
Yeah.
And he hits the ball. And Rio Ferdinand described that as an exquisite finish. He hits the target, but it takes a big deflection, which takes it away from Nick Pope, similar to what we saw in the cup final, where Botman sticks his leg out, and Botman has to do that. I'm not blaming Botman for this; he has to do it. But that's the reason Nick Pope doesn't save that shot. But it just shows you the quality of Manchester City, doesn't it? Right there, one player makes a difference.
I mean, he goes past Dan Burn like he's not even there, which is a bit of a shame. I think Dan Burn's on his heels trying to turn, and by the time that happens, Foden's away and past him. And then I think it's Bruno, Gordon, and Botman who are on him, and nobody wants to stick a leg out because he's in that flow where the tiniest touch he'll go down, and then there's a penalty. So, stick your leg out, give a penalty, probably going to be a goal, concede a goal. You can't really complain about much other than maybe it's the initial play of, Dan Burn maybe could have done a bit better positionally wise to stop Foden making that run. But like I say, I think if I remember rightly as well, it kind of went against the rub of the green as well. I thought we were maybe on the front foot a bit more than that. As soon as before that goal went in, it was early on, it was about 10, 15 minutes. So
so I think it was after that goal, Scott, where Man City started dominate quite a bit. Possession, just they stick with possession, and that comes down to ourselves. It's our mistakes, which every single time we pick that ball up, whether it be up top, middle of the field, or in defence, nobody looked confident whatsoever. Everybody just, especially Trippier, and I'm going to highlight him later on in this recording.
Yeah.
But every single one of them just didn't want the ball. They didn't look comfortable, and they didn't want to basically lift their heads up, see what was around them. It just seemed like head down, I'm just going to try and get rid of this ball. And every single time it landed to a Manchester City player. Yeah. Every time.
Yeah, I think a lot of that is obviously if Man City score early, and we touch on this in the preview, the floodgates have a chance to just fly open and you get beat 5-6-0. And it's very easy for that to happen. You see some of the best teams in the world, then it happens to them against Man City. So I think a lot of the players would have been like, okay, suffered a second defeat in the league just recently. We just lost the League Cup final. We don't want to be humiliated here. We don't want to go and just, play our game and risk, it being 3-4-0 before half time. Let's sit back a bit. Let's do what we need to do. But as you say, I think that had a consequence of we just forgot to pass the ball. We forgot to play football. And it reverted to, long balls and just clearances. And, sometimes I think there was an incident where Sven Botman, just after the goal, he won the ball back, I think, off Haaland. And I was just screaming at the telly, just put your foot through, just get rid of it. And he didn't, and he lost it.
Tries to run out with it.
Ended up going off for a corner. So I think there was a bit of shell shock. I think there was a little bit of, right, let's just not concede another one.
Scott, this isn't the first time where we're seeing these sort of mistakes and these errors. We mentioned it quite a few times on reactions and match previews that we go this last game, whatever it may be, and that we're giving opposition chances, we're basically gifting them chances. And Eddie Howe mentioned it in his press conference as well, said that we need to be clever, we need to be focused and not give the ball away. And I lost count how many times we did it in that game. And we weren't the only one. De Bruyne had a pretty poor game as well. He lost the ball a few times as well. Players slipping all over the shop.
Yeah, I don't know if it had been raining or anything. It was the pitch seemed very, very slick. I know that's how City like to play, but I think Bruno was falling over quite a bit, and
Lascelles took a tumble a couple of times as well.
Yeah, Lascelles did. It's a strange one. It's almost like they had the wrong studs in, or they had Had the wrong blades and or whatever it is they're having their boots these days.
Manchester City definitely had the sprinklers out before this
absolutely,
game.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the next chance, it lands to us, mate. Well, the next decent chance, it lands to us. And I think we need to focus a little bit on Callum Wilson here, because how many weeks now have we said that he doesn't look the same? He looks far from the player that was fighting to get in that England team to go to the World Cup. Since his return, he's looked far from the striker which we once had with Callum Wilson. He doesn't look confident. He's a player that used to win a lot of free kicks for us by backing into players. He's not getting the rub of the green with referees. Referees are just letting everything go, which I don't think is his fault, to be honest with you. But if we look at the chance that he gets, and this has happened quite a bit recently with Callum Wilson, once again in a decent area, he should, just like Gordon, he should be at least hitting the target with that, Scott.
Yeah.
But he just gets it all wrong. Everything goes wrong. I know it takes a bounce, but everything's wrong about it from a decent ball in.
Yeah, I mean, he's got time as well. There's not like as a defender on his back, and he swings at it, and I think it hits his studs. I don't even think he makes a very good connection with it at all, and it just goes out. It's a good ball in. You know, we were criticised by not putting crosses into the box. I felt like this today. We did that a little bit more. Maybe it's not as much as we would like to see, but there was a good couple of crosses going in. But that one, I think I put a comment in our group chat, like if Callum Wilson had that chance in October, the net's bulging, like he's
taking the net off
all day, every day. I don't know what it is. I just don't know what it is with Callum Wilson at the moment. Like I say, since Qatar, he just hasn't been the same player. He's looked lethargic. He's looked quite slow at times. I think today, him backing into the defenders, I think the first time he actually won one of those challenges was about 30 minutes in the game. It just,
and I think that was a great contest as well. Callum Wilson, and I can't remember the centre back's name, forgive us, but a great contest. But Lascelles was winning absolutely nothing.
Yeah, it was. Like I said, it's what we've seen, but the thing is, who do you play instead? Because Isak isn't that sort of player who can do that. So you cannot really say, we'll play someone else and play the same style of game, because we haven't got anyone who can do that.
Do you think if the opposition was different, let's say if we were going up against, what's the next home game? Wolves. The next home game is Wolves. Do you think after that cup final, let's say if it was Wolves, I think, is it Forest next week?
It's Wolves then Forest.
Is it? Whichever way it may be. If we were playing one of those teams first, then do you think Eddie Howe may have went with Isak?
See, I see it the other way around. I think this game, and again, we touched on this in the preview, this was the chance to maybe try something new. Because it's, and again, we said this, it's not a free hit, and, I hate using that term, but no one expects to win against Man City, and if you get a result, it's a bonus. So why not, play a different hand and just see how they react? Because we'll come to this later. When the substitutes happened and the players that we're talking about came on the pitch, we looked at different sides.
We'll go through them now, mate. So there's 3 substitutes made. You have Willock coming on for Longstaff.
Yeah.
Saint comes on for Gordon, and Isak comes on for Wilson. Those are 3 decent substitutes to have at your disposal.
Yeah,
they really are. And they changed the game. As soon as those 3 players come on the field, it's all Newcastle. Everything is Newcastle. And that's when a lot of the crosses start coming into the box. Joe Willock, I thought, for the impact he had against Man United in the final, was pretty poor. The impact which he had on today's game, I thought he looked decent.
Yeah, he was very decent. That ball he put in, I think right as he came on, I think,
for Joe,
where Joe Linton just missed. I think he missed it as well.
Shocking.
I think it felt a Maxi who couldn't get a shot away. There was 2 defenders on him, as always. I thought the impact of those 3 substitutes, Isak did very well, getting past players, running with the ball. You see the quality he brings. And then St. Maximum. I mean, he's taken on players. He's, maybe he loses it once or twice, but that's the sort of player he is. Like,
got to try these things.
That out of his game. Got to try them, especially when you're 1-0 down.
1-0 down at that point.
But yeah, it was. I felt like the only thing I would have maybe liked to have seen, and it's because he wasn't doing much in this game, was maybe have taken Miggy off instead of Gordon. And I would have liked to have seen, like we said at the start, Gordon, Maxi, and Isak be on that pitch just to see what they can do, because I think that's not only dangerous, there's a lot of pace there, especially when you're bringing on Joe Willock as well, who's, I think, one of the fastest players in the squad. That would be dangerous. And maybe it was Eddie Howe not wanting to expose Kieran Trippier, who, you mentioned he was getting a bit caught out up the field a little bit, and you've got Miggy's legs for getting back. So, again, Eddie will have his reasons why he made those substitutes. They were working up until, and I'm sure we're going to come to it now, the second goal.
Sucker punch, mate.
Oh,
a sucker
horrible.
punch. It really is. At this point in the game, when those 3 subs come on, I'm thinking we might grab a goal here. Like we at least going to score, because they did look dangerous. Every time we got the ball and went forward, would look dangerous. Like you mentioned, Joe Willock put that honestly pinpoint cross in. Joe Linton, all he's got to do is make a decent connection with that, and that should be a goal all day long. That's probably the best chance of the game. And we'll have a couple of decent opportunities after that, getting in decent positions, the ball getting just through across that 6-yard box. And I think a lot of it happened when Murphy came on later in the game. But before that, obviously the sucker punch comes. We're dominating the game, and Kieran Trippier once again just loses the ball. And I don't want to criticise Trippier too much, because he's been the best signing that this club has made since the takeaway. He's been phenomenal. What he's done to this football club and how he's changed the mentality of this squad is second to none. But he can't be losing it there. He really can't be. And it wasn't the first time. So easily, he just gifts the ball, just wraps it up, puts a little ball on the top of it, and goes, crack on, lads. And it's Manchester City. You do that against these teams, and they'll break you every single time. And before we know it, we're dominating a game and 2-0 down once again.
Yeah, and I think that really took the wind out of our sails when that second goal went in. I think it was Aki that he passed the ball to. Yeah, it was. It was. Do you know what it is? It's a blind pass. He doesn't know what's around him, and he just kicks the ball without looking, and he thinks there's a player running. And I think it's Maxi who's next to him. Maybe that was after the goal, because he did exactly the same thing about 5 minutes after the goal. But yeah, I mean, they cut inside. Haaland's got 2 central defenders by him, who, by the way, I do want to call out, Lascelles and Botman nullified Haaland up until that one little assist, that little flick, and for the rest of the game, he got nothing. So they did really well against him. But
I think if we take the positive from the game, it probably that's what I immediately think of, how well they dealt with Haaland. They really did. And I think the commentators highlighted saying, if you're a centre back going up against Haaland, you have to be physical, you have to match his strength, and you've got to stay with him. And Lascelles and Botman, almost every single time, just shepherd him away from the ball. I thought they did really, really well, and it doesn't really reflect how well they played to be on the end of a 2-0 defeat. It doesn't, but it happens. But I think the likes of Lascelles will take a lot of confidence from that performance.
Yeah, I mean, considering, when we saw the lineup, and I think Twitter went into a meltdown saying, it's going to be a high-scoring free-for-all for Haaland up against Lascelles. He's proved a lot of people wrong today. He's done himself no harm. But yeah, to get back to the goal, I think because they're doubled up on him, the space is there for Bernardo to just make that run. Haaland gets the flick, and then it just falls to him, and he's finishing that every day of the week. It doesn't matter who's in goal. And like you say, that really took the wind out of our sails, and I think even watching the game, it took a lot of the interest out of it. It was like, okay, we're 2-0 down. You could see how we reacted. It wasn't great. I think we brought on Jacob Murphy, who
once again did well when he
did well. Yeah, he put in a good couple of crosses. But yeah, it just wasn't meant to be. I mean, you play Man City at the Etihad, to only come away 2-0 is seen by a lot of teams as a good result. Maybe it's not to us, but to only concede 2 against them when they're in a good form at the moment, they're playing some decent football.
I think the thing for me, Scott, I think if we look at this as where we want to be in the future, okay, and I know we're ahead of schedule with the plans of the football club going forward, but that doesn't excuse not being able to finish our chances. Far from it.
No, not at all.
That's a game where they had decent chances, we had decent chances. That could have easily been a draw. It could have been. And because the likes of Wilson and Joe Linton, and I think we had a header as well, which was a decent header, which it's just poor, mate. It really is. It's poor, and I think I think Eddie Howe now has to look at that going into this game against Wolves, thinking we need to change something up top. We'll have to. Callum Wilson, he can't keep on being loyal to Callum Wilson when your striker isn't scoring goals.
Absolutely. I think as a team, there was a stat come up. We've only scored 3 this year.
The lowest scoring team in the Premier League since January.
That's a concern. Because we were getting goals, and it wasn't
everywhere.
Wilson getting them all. We're getting them from everywhere. I mean, I think Miggy's still our top goal scorer on 11. So that tells you everything you need to know about how we were playing. Before this, I don't know. It just doesn't seem to be clicking, and I don't know. If Eddie's doing finishing training in the training ground, I'm assuming he is. But if not, he needs to, because it's not just this week, and it's not just last week in the final. It's been for a good couple of months now where we've just been not being able to finish our dinner or
ever
chances.
It's ever since Sean Longstaff learned how to score learn how to hit the target. It's like that scene of Space Jam where they take the powers off professional basketball players. I think Longstaff's just took the powers off everybody else in the team so he could score those 2 goals and nobody else can hit the target now. It's just how I look at the minute. And do you know what it is? We're saying this every single week. It's not a bad performance. It's not. It's a game where we've lost. And I'll probably say that the last 3 games, so it's 3 on the bounce now, 3 defeats on the bounce to Liverpool, Man United in the cup final, and now Man City. I think Man United's probably the worst performance out of all 3 of those. But it still wasn't a bad performance. It still wasn't. And that's what annoys me the most, is that we're putting a shift in. The lads are doing decent across the field, almost everywhere, apart from that final third. And it's really annoying.
Yeah, I mean, if you zoom out, we're only, 18 months into this journey?
Yeah.
19 months into this journey. This time last season, we would be happy with a 2-0 defeat against Man City at the Etihad. You would expect to lose against Liverpool and Man U. Like, this season, yeah, maybe we've overachieved, but we're playing good football and we're this close. All we need is a little bit more quality, and I think if we get that in the summer...
When does our mentality change? To be
when
the
did
team,
it change?
When does it need to change? Rather than being like, we're so fresh into this new Newcastle United. At what point does it switch to be like, I'm not happy with that?
I think...
Is it when the squad gets full of confidence?
It would have been the end of next season, for me personally. But because we've overachieved, I hate using that word, but we're punching above our weight, especially. I think if we start next season and we're still having struggled scoring goals after a summer transfer window, which I think everybody's expecting to probably be one of our biggest summer transfer windows in recent memory, judging on the players going out and players coming in, because we've got a lot of contracts expiring. We've got a lot of players who need to move on and probably will want to move on. I think, if it gets like October and we're still struggling to score, that's when you go, okay, this isn't, something else isn't right. You're not going to see how out tweets or anything like that from anybody, I don't think, for a long, long time, because he's got enough money in the bank to last him, for years. But
yeah, of course,
it's a funny sport. I mean, we could start next season, not win a game for a good few weeks, and it'll happen. There'll be some people out there who'll be questioning the leadership and the management. But yeah, I just think we're just missing that little bit of quality in some of the players, and if we can upgrade those players in the summer, there's not a question in my mind that we'll be in the same position, if not better, next season.
100%.
In terms of position.
100%, mate. I think, just to sum it up, though, it's just a frustrating game there that Eddie had. It really is. We're once again creating chances, but just kind of finding the back of the net. And it was different to other games where we've discussed that, how the lads look like they're trying to score a pleasing goal. Yeah, like trying to score a goal for the cameras rather than just hitting it when they can. Trying to score that perfect team goal, like they have previously done and tried against Liverpool and Man United. This one will actually change things slightly. We're trying to just throw the ball in the box, but we're just once again we just couldn't get the ball hit the back of the net. And I think now that the next 2 games coming up are crucial. They really are. I think we need to take maximum points from those games. If I'm being honest, I think we need all 6.
I think Forest will be a tough game, but I think against Wolves we should at least we need to take 3 points against Wolves.
Yeah.
If you get a draw against Forest, that's a bad result on the grand scheme of things. But the way they're playing, it's also a pretty decent, take back again. But I get what you're saying. Like, I would want 6 points from these next 2 games.
Yeah, you need to start taking the league and the rest of the season now by the scruff of the neck. We need a decent end to this season because we've hit this bit of a dry spell. Comes to goals and 3 points. Been a while since it's happened, and we just need to try and get everything back on track now because we had such a good start up until the World Cup. Then we always asked the question before the World Cup actually started: is it a good thing? Will it be a bad thing? I think now looking back on it, for us, it was pretty bad because since that, we haven't hit that same sort of pattern which we were doing beforehand. Far from it.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose the one thing you can take from it, we've only lost 2 games.
Yeah.
Since then, like let's look at that as well and take that from as a positive because in the 2 games we've lost have been against Liverpool and Man City. I mean,
it's the draws that don't help.
But yeah, that's the thing. It's the draws and not being able to score, which is the worry. Once those draws start turning into defeats, that's when panic sets in. And you start thinking, okay, we need to change formations or we need to change our style of play. I think Eddie Howe knows that, and I think Eddie Howe is well aware that we can't just rely on picking up 1 point every week or 0 points. You've got to put 3 points on the board eventually. Let's hope it comes next week.
Yeah, fingers crossed. One thing which I do want to mention before we go is just as we started recording this one, the game ended at the Stadium Light, and I just want to highlight Dwight Gale doing the celebration. That celebration that everybody knows, the going up, going down. Perfect. I love Dwight Gale, mate. I love him as a person. I think people that know the history of the channel they'll realise that I wasn't Dwight Gale's biggest fan in regards to Premier League quality striker, but for him to still have that love and affiliation to this football club. He was at the cup final last week, sitting with the fans, and this week he goes and celebrates in front of the Mackems like that is perfect, mate. Perfect. It made that defeat a little bit easier for me.
Yeah, bittersweet, isn't it? It just puts a little smile on your face at the end of the day when you've had a rough game against Man City.
It does. But yeah, thanks, mate. It's been a pleasure. Even though it wasn't a defeat, it's been a pleasure to go over this. It's like a therapy session, isn't it? Just discussing that.
It is.
But yeah, everybody watching, listening, if you want to like the video, it means a lot to us. It helps us go out to more, even more Newcastle United fans. If you want to subscribe to the channel, it costs you absolutely nothing to do that. If you do want to give a little bit back that extra bit back to us, it is just $2.99 a month to become a member. You get access to the Telegram group. I haven't been on the Telegram this afternoon since the defeat, but I'm guessing there's lots of chat and debate going on there at the moment. You'll get access to videos as well, earlier than others, and plenty more to come. Scott has just built a website as well.
Scan the QR code. I'll put it right there. So scan that QR code right there, and have a look at the website. Scan
that, and that'll take you to the website. And it's basically just a hub to everything Gallowgateshots related. But yeah, we'll see you next time. More stuff to come. Always Smile and Faces podcast on Monday. Match previews coming this week. And yeah, plenty more. What are you doing? Bye,
everyone.